Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. Today we're going to put the end cap on the Song of the Sea in Exodus chapter 15 by thinking about and exploring the Song of Miriam that follows the longer song sung by Moses and the Israelites. And stay with me to the end for a couple of important announcements. I'm going to begin by reading my translation of Exodus 15 verses 19 through 21. Some of you have asked if I'm going to publish my translation, and the answer is yes. My commentary on Exodus that will come out in a couple years with Baker Academic will include my entire translation of the book, and I will probably have made improvements to it over what I've shared here on my YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. It's still a couple years off. I'm 56% finished writing the commentary and trying to make good headway over the next year. All right, so starting in verse 19. When the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his riders went into the sea, Yahweh turned the waters of the sea on them. But the Israelites walked on dry land in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam, the prophet, sister of Aaron, took the hand drum in her hand, and all the women went out after her with drums and circle dancing. And Miriam answered them in song, "Sing to Yahweh, for he has truly risen up. Horse and its charioteer he has cast into the sea." All right, this one is so much fun. I've just written an article on the Song of Miriam, and it's being published in the Bulletin for Biblical Research. It should come out any day now. We're having some trouble with the typesetting of the Hebrew, but it should be out very soon, and then you can see my full argument. But here are some of the nuggets that I want to share with you. First of all, verse 19, the summary of what happened at the sea, matches chapter 14, verses 28 and 29. It repeats several key phrases to summarize the defeat of Pharaoh's army at the sea. This is what scholars call a resumptive exposition. That is, it's the same thing repeated to let you know we are now picking up the story where we left off before there was an interruption to that story. Now, a couple of scholars, Jansen and Alexander, both say that what's happening here is something called analepsis, which is to say that the Song of Miriam that we read here in verses 20 and 21 actually occurred before the Song of Moses and the people of Israel. That the narrative way of signaling that is to repeat in verse 19 what happened at the end of chapter 14 to show, okay, this is what happened next, and that this section is dyschronological. It's out of chronological order. Now, it says that Miriam answered them in song, which sounds like they sang first and then she answered. It's a little bit misleading because what's happening here is what's called antiphonal singing, which is a call and response kind of song. And the idea is that she is exhorting the people to sing, and the longer version of the song is their response to her. So it's a back and forth signaled by this word, answered. Okay, so let's back up now to the beginning of verse 20, which introduces Miriam as the prophet, sister of Aaron. This is the first time Miriam is named in the biblical text. She was not named in Exodus chapter 2 when she played a really decisive and important role in rescuing her brother Moses from death in the Nile by watching over him as he's nestled among the reeds, and then the daughter of Pharaoh finds him. She's not named there, and I would argue that she's not named because the narrator is trying to whisper and conceal the identities of the women involved in defying Pharaoh because they do so at great risk to themselves. It's a little bit like in a wartime situation. If you have an underground resistance movement, they might go by fake names so that if they're ever caught and tortured to try to give up the names of their comrades, they won't be able to answer honestly. My own grandmother worked in the Dutch resistance in World War II. They did not use their real names as they worked with other allies to fight the Nazis. And so I went with her to a 60th anniversary reunion of the end of World War II. And there were a bunch of people in the room there together who obviously looked much older than they had when they were working in the resistance. And complicating that was the fact that they didn't know anyone by their actual name. So I think that's something like what we have going on in the beginning of Exodus, where we don't have the names of Miriam. Even the daughter of Pharaoh is not named. The mother of the child is not named. So this is all part of the kind of hush that's fallen over that event. That's how I would understand it. In any case, all the genealogies lists Miriam and Aaron as the siblings of Moses, and there are no other sisters named. So literally speaking, Miriam is the one who was there at the banks of the Nile and is now here on the shore of the sea to take her stand with the people and bear witness to God's redemptive work. So she's named here for the first time, but oddly introduced as the sister of Aaron. Why not call her the sister of Moses? After all, he's the most famous member of this story and the one we would expect to see. I would argue that she's being called the sister of Aaron because she plays a similar role to Aaron. In chapter 7, verse 1, Aaron is called Moses' prophet. Moses speaks. Aaron takes the words of Moses and announces them to the people. And Moses is under his authority. And in a similar way, Miriam here speaks on Moses' behalf, leading the people in song, and she is also under his authority, as we see in Numbers chapter 12. Miriam is the first female prophet named in the Bible, but she is not the last. Deborah in Judges 4, verse 4, is called a prophet. Huldah is a prophetess in 2 Kings 22:14. Fascinating story. Noadiah appears in Nehemiah 6, verse 14. The wife of Isaiah is called a prophetess, Isaiah 8, verse 3. And then in the New Testament, we have Anna, Mary, Elizabeth, and the daughters of Philip, who all prophesy, not to mention Paul's lists of spiritual gifts, where he indicates that prophecy is one of the spiritual gifts that God gives, and he does not designate that these are limited to men. Women too prophesy. In fact, in Paul's churches, we know that women were supposed to cover their heads when they prophesied, which indicates that women were indeed prophesying in the congregations that he founded, such as in Corinth. So, but this is the first. Miriam is the first among those. It's interesting to note that women were traditionally the ones who received back the victorious army after battle and greeted them with hand drums and circle dancing and song. This was a cultural convention. We see this in Psalm 68, verse 25, in Judges 5, verse 1, Judges 11, verse 34. We see it in 1 Samuel 18, verses 6 and 7. And 2 Samuel 1:20, you can pause the video and look those up to see other examples of women who received back a victorious army and celebrated their victory with hand drums and dancing. Now, I'm saying hand drums quite on purpose, not tambourines, although your Bible might say tambourine. The tambourine was not invented until a couple of thousand years after this story took place, like 1300 AD. So this would have been a small handheld drum. I suspect that English Bible translations do not call it a drum because of some history of discrimination against drumming that was seen to be maybe demonic in some way based on stereotypes or misunderstandings of what people are doing in Africa with drums. That is my gut feeling, hypothesis. I have not tested that out, but here we have hand drums quite clearly. There are lots of figurines that have been found from ancient times of women holding hand drums, and also pictures in tombs and on temple walls of women with hand drums. So this is a conventional symbol. So the women's combination of drumming and dancing and song utilized a recognized performance genre for which the occasion and audience added to the communicative potential of the event. They are performing what would have been expected, only here the army is not being celebrated. It's not Israel's warriors who have brought this deliverance, it's Yahweh himself. And therefore, the song plays a really important interpretive role to let everyone know Moses didn't do this, the army didn't do this, Yahweh did this, and he's the victorious warrior. Now, there's one possible wordplay here that I find fascinating. It might be a bit of a stretch. You can see what you think. But the word for circle dancing, mecholah, rhymes with the word for felt sorry, chamal, which occurs in chapter 2, verse 6. So when the daughter of Pharaoh found Moses in the basket among the reeds, she felt sorry for him. And now the consonants of that word for feel sorry have been reversed as the women now celebrate the deliverance of Yahweh's people through the sea of reeds. So we have these two deliverance stories, which I've talked about before, how the story of the deliverance of Moses anticipates the story of the deliverance of the people of Israel because they have the same sequential events. Miriam is present at both deliverances, bearing witness to the rescue of Moses and the rescue of the people of Israel. And if this wordplay is actually in effect, it's linking together the rescue of Moses and the rescue of the people of Israel, and showing how what we have here is the reversal of sorrow because the punishment fits the crime. The Israelite sons were supposed to be drowned in the Nile River, and now the sons of Israel's oppressors are being drowned in the Sea of Reeds. So the punishment fits the crime. Miriam, as a child, had led women in colluding against Pharaoh, defying Pharaoh's edict. She's the one who connected the daughter of Pharaoh and her own mother to provide for Moses after he was discovered. Now she leads the women in this celebration of Pharaoh's defeat. It's really remarkable to have her here. She's important in the literary structure of the book to link these two events together. Both of these events happen at reeds, at water, and both involve rescue. So much fun. In verse 21, we can see that Miriam is singing to the whole community. When it says Miriam answered them in song, the them is masculine plural. She is not just singing to the women. She is singing to the men. And her song, in case you didn't realize it, is not identical to the Song of Moses. They're close, but Moses and the Israelites had sung, I will sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. Miriam's song says, sing to Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. Miriam's song is an exhortation to sing. And if Jansen and Alexander are right that it's chronologically prior to the Song of the Whole Nation, this all makes a lot of sense. So Miriam says to everyone, sing. She's commanding the community to give honor to Yahweh for this victory at the sea. And their response is the longer song we've already worked our way through, where they sing. Each one says, I will sing to Yahweh. Now, why put Miriam's song after the song that everyone else sings if chronologically it happened first? I think what's going on narratively here is that Miriam gets the final word. Her authoritative call to recognize Yahweh as deliverer is the last voice that's ringing out across the desert as the people walk away from the sea. And because they have already sung, her word exhorts us to sing and continue to sing of Yahweh's deliverance. Micah chapter 6, verse 4 remembers Miriam alongside Moses and Aaron as one of the leaders of Israel. And it's clear in the book of Numbers when Miriam dies, the entire community stops and goes through a period of mourning for her. She's well loved and well remembered. In fact, by the time of the 1st century in Jesus' day, 25% of Jewish women were named after her. 25%. You've seen a lot of Marys in the New Testament. Mary in Greek is Mariam. It's Miriam. It's the name Miriam. And it is the most common Jewish name of all for women. So I hope that this has been a fun kind of second look at the Song of Miriam. I have two things I want to share with you before I say goodbye. The first, some of you have noticed these books in the background on my videos. This is an amazing series of children's books from Wolfbane Books by Kenneth Padgett and Shay Gregorie. illustrated by Aedan Peterson, the son of singer-songwriter Andrew Peterson. These are amazing. As you can see, the cover of this one, The Story of God Our Savior, is the sea crossing event. These are biblically and theologically rich. They are absolutely gorgeous, and you could learn so much from reading them. They also have The Story of God with Us and The Story of God Our King. It's a fabulous series, highly recommended. You can find them online. Finally, I wanted to let you know that for the next few weeks, we're going to be doing something different here on Torah Tuesday. I have invited a few of my students to share their research with you. So next week and for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be hearing from my TA and co-author Mark Reasoner as he dives into the book of Leviticus, just a 2-part series on what he thinks we should know about Leviticus, a very underappreciated book. And then we're probably going to hear from some of my grad students about their projects on the book of Exodus that they're studying this semester. I thought, I am hearing such great research from my students. I would love to share it with you. So I've invited them to create some videos to share. So watch for that in the coming weeks. Until next time, have a great week.